Welcome to Lost in Revision. All of our content is public domain, literature, fairy tales, and folklore. All of our music is by Nathan Hubble and is used with his permission. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to Lost in Revision, brought to you by Mother's Day, and also deleting ourselves off of Spotify. I'll explain the Spotify thing after introductions. Sorry to all our Spotify peeps. I'm here as always with two of my favorite humans, Angel and Polly. Happy Mother's Day, Angel.
Happy Mother's Day. I was very pleasantly surprised by two of my kiddos this morning. They suddenly appeared in my living room going, "Hey, Mom," carrying brunch and flowers. Unfortunately, one of my sons was working a double and couldn't be there, but I was so excited to have such an unexpected treat. It can be very challenging to get time to just sit and talk to your babies once they are adults and living very busy lives.
That is so true, except for my youngest. That sounds awesome though. Like I don't get my kids just dropping in because they live in another state, but
Well, mine are going to be living in a different state in a couple of months. But
right?
that's for
Enjoy it while
another
you
podcast
can.
for me to cry over.
Right. We'll get to that when it happens. Cross that bridge. We'll burn that bridge when we get there. One of my favorite mouths. What is it called? Malforism?
Malafor.
Malafor. And also, Polly, you just spoke. Happy Mother's Day to you too. How are you?
And also to you. I'm good. I am not working nights anymore. A shift opened up on
Yay!
in the daytime. I am now the second shift supervisor, which
Wow.
is a grill operator position, so I'm also not waiting
Perfect.
tables anymore. As a bonus, I get to work on the same shift as baby girl.
Sweet.
All of that sounds like life just got a little bit better. That's awesome.
Oh, the pay's better
Yes.
too.
Oh, it's even doubly awesome.
Yeah, that's even better. And yay for sharing shifts. That's what I was saying earlier about my youngest. She calls me when she's stocking shelves on the weekends and she'll stay on the phone for like hours. So does that count as me working a shift with her?
I'll count it. I'll allow it.
I don't get paid. It's unpaid shift.
It's a volunteer position.
I just had
Much
a thought.
like working for tips.
This drops on May 15th.
Yes.
And it just so happens that May 15th is going to be one of my big birthdays. I have a big birthday year this year. So happy birthday to me.
We're not going to ask which one, but happy birthday.
When you listen to this, just know that I do not wish people happy birthday.
I know you don't.
Because I wish everyone happy birthday on January 1st because I'm terrible at remembering. And I'm like, when it gets there, this counts. So when we were in the middle of recording this, it cut off right as I said that when Angel listens to this on the 15th, then this is her happy birthday from me. And the recording completely shut down and we had to restart, and we did not restart from the same place. So happy birthday, Angel. Today is your birthday. Woo! So before we move on to the rest of the podcast, let me apologize to our Spotify listeners. We had to remove all of our content from Spotify because their automatic system kept incorrectly flagging us for infringement. And it was a fight to keep us up on all the other platforms every single time they did that. So every episode that shared a name with a movie was getting flagged multiple times, even though we very carefully cultivate our content from public domain sources. I hope our Spotify listeners find us on any of the other platforms that host podcasts or find us on YouTube. So anyhow, on with the show. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the history and culture of this story?
All right, so this is one of the stories Andrew Lang adapted into his Brown Fairy book. He had a series of what is known as the 12 colored fairy books, and his wife Nora worked with him to translate and edit all of his fairy tale editions. While her name never appeared on the cover or on the spine, he did add a preface to the Lilac Fairy book that was published in 1910 that, and to quote, "The fairy books have been almost wholly the work of Mrs. Lang. who has translated and adapted them from the French, German, Portuguese, Italian, Spanish, Catalan, and other languages, unquote.
At least he gave her credit. I understand it was difficult to get published as a woman, and so having him to publish on her behalf allowed her to perform her craft without having to use a wholly anonymous pen name or be dismissed altogether without a chance. It reminds me of the scene in The Ghost of Mrs. Muir where she tries to get the publisher to read her manuscript and he just won't.
Yeah. Oh, God, I love that movie. And yes. And Andrew's urge to gather and publish fairy tales was rooted in his experiences as a child, and he was fighting against critics and educationists of the day who considered traditional tales to be unreal and brutal escapism that was harmful for young readers. Um, his reputation as a folklorist and his packaging of the uniform books helped change public perception of the genre.
I heard a story one time about how many men had great discoveries and works of art and being published, like published works, that all of a sudden stopped having content released when their spouses died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was a thing.
Yeah, while he collected all of the tales for the first four collections, which are the blue, red, green, and yellow fairy books, the ones that followed after that were mostly the work of Nora, as she began collecting as well as translating and editing them. The Brown Fairy book was published in 1904 and contains stories from Native Americans, Australian Bushmen, African Sothos, and from Persia, Lapland, Brazil, and India.
The name of that book is slightly problematic to me.
Well, they were going through all of the colors, so.
What a choice.
About like the Olympic ring colors.
Today's story, The Lion and the Cat, is actually from the Americas. It's from North American Indian Legends. And the ending paragraph takes the story in a completely unexpected direction that kind of felt like a cliffhanger ending to a series of stories.
It was definitely a plot twist.
It was. I was like, wait, what? And it makes me think somewhere there must be a continuation of this tale. I just haven't found it yet.
Well, I'm sure that's a quest for another day.
Yes. Here we go a questing. So let's move on to the reading of the story and then we can discuss it after.
The Lion and the Cat, adapted from North American Indian Legends. Far away on the other side of the world, there lived, long ago, a lion and his younger brother, the wild cat, who were so fond of each other that they shared the same hut. The lion was much bigger and stronger of the two. Indeed, he was much bigger and stronger than any of the beasts that dwelt in the forest, and, besides, he could jump farther and run faster than all the rest. If strength and swiftness could gain him a dinner, he was sure never to be without one. But when it came to cunning, both the grizzly bear and the serpent could get the better of him, and he was forced to call in the help of the wildcat. Now, the young wildcat had a lovely golden ball, so beautiful that you could hardly look at it except through a piece of smoked glass, and he kept it hidden in the thick fur muff that went around his neck. A very large old animal, since dead, had given it to him when he was hardly more than a baby, and had told him never to part with it, for as long as he kept it no harm could ever come to him. In general, the wild cat did not need to use his ball, for the lion was fond of hunting and could kill all the food that they needed. But now and then his life would have been in danger had it not been for the golden ball. One day the two brothers started to hunt at daybreak, but As the cat could not run nearly as fast as the lion, he had quite a long start. At least, he thought it was a long one, but in a very few bounds and springs the lion reached his side. "There is a bear sitting on that tree," he whispered softly. "He is only waiting for us to pass, to drop down on my back." "Ah, you are so big that he does not see I am behind you," answered the wild cat, and, touching the ball, he said, "Bear, die." And the bear tumbled dead out of the tree and rolled over just in front of them. For some time they trotted on without any adventures, till just as they were about to cross a strip of long grass on the edge of the forest, the lion's quick ears detected a faint rustling noise. "That's a snake!" he cried, stopping short, for he was much more afraid of snakes than of bears. "Oh, it is all right," answered the cat. "Snake, die." And the snake died, and the two brothers skinned it. Then they folded the skin up into a very small parcel, and the cat tucked it into his mane, for snakes' skins can do all sorts of wonderful things if you are lucky enough to have one of them. All this time they had had no dinner, for the snake's flesh was not nice, and the lion did not like eating bear, perhaps because he never felt sure that the bear was really dead and would not jump up alive when his enemy was near him. Most people are afraid of something, and bears and serpents were the only creatures that caused the lion's heart to tremble. So the two brothers set off again and soon reached the side of a hill where some fine deer were grazing. "Kill one of those deer for your own dinner," said the boy brother, "but catch me another alive. I want him." The lion at once sprang towards them with a loud roar, but the deer bounded away, and they were all three soon lost to sight. The cat waited for a long while, but finding that the lion did not return, went back to the house where they lived. It was quite dark when the lion came home, where his brother was sitting curled up in one corner. "Did you catch the deer for me?" asked the boy brother, springing up. "Well, no," replied the man brother. "The fact is that I did not get up to them until we had run halfway across the world and left the wind far behind us. Think what a trouble it would have been to drag it here. So I just ate them both." The cat said nothing, but he did not feel that he loved his big brother. He had thought a great deal about that deer, and had meant to get on his back and ride him as a horse, and go see all the wonderful places the lion talked to him about when he was in a good temper. The more he thought of it, the more sulky he grew, and in the morning, when the lion said that it was time for them to start to hunt, the cat told him that he might kill the bear and snake by himself, as he had a headache and would rather stay home. The little fellow knew quite well that the lion would not dare go out without him and his ball, for fear of meeting a bear or a snake. The quarrel went on, and for many days neither of the brothers spoke to each other, and what made them still more cross was that they could get very little to eat, and we know that people are often cross when they are hungry. At last it occurred to the lion that if he could only steal the magic ball, he could kill bears and snakes for himself, and then the cat might be as sulky as he liked for anything that it would matter. But how was the stealing to be done? The cat had the ball hung round his neck day and night, and he was such a light sleeper that it was useless to think of taking it while he slept. No, the only thing was to get him to lend it of his own accord, and after some days the lion, who was not at all clever, hit upon a plan that he thought would do. "Dear me, how dull it is here," said the lion one afternoon, when the rain was pouring down in such torrents that, however sharp your eyes or your nose might be, you could not spy a single bird or beast among the bushes. Dear me, how dull, how dreadfully dull I am. Couldn't we have a game of catch with that golden ball of yours? I don't care about playing catch. It does not amuse me, answered the cat, who was as cross as ever, for no cat, even to this day, ever forgets an injury done to him. Well, then lend me the ball for a little, and I will play by myself, replied the lion, stretching out a paw as he spoke. You can't play in the rain, and if you did, you would only lose it in the bushes, said the cat. Oh, no, I won't. I will play in here. Don't be so ill-natured. And with a very bad grace, the cat untied the string and threw the golden ball into the lion's lap and composed himself to sleep again. For a long while, the lion tossed it up and down gaily, feeling that, however sound asleep the boy brother might look, he was sure to have one eye open. But gradually he began to edge closer to the opening, and at last gave such a toss that the ball went up high into the air, and he could not see what became of it. Oh, how stupid of me, he cried, as the cat sprang up angrily. Let us go at once and search for it. It can't really have fallen very far. But though they searched that day and the next after that, they never found it, because it never came down. After the loss of his ball, the cat refused to live with the lion any longer, but wandered away to the north, always hoping he might meet with his ball again. But months passed, and years passed, and though he traveled over hundreds of miles, he never saw any traces of it. At length, when he was getting quite old, he came to a place unlike any that he had ever seen before, where a big river rolled right to the foot of some high mountains. The ground all about the river bank was damp and marshy, and as no cat likes to wet its feet, this one climbed a tree that rose high above the water, and thought sadly of his lost ball, which would have helped him out of this horrible place. Suddenly, he saw a beautiful ball, for all the world like his own, dangling from a branch of the tree he was on. He longed to get at it, but was the branch strong enough to bear his weight? It was no use, after all he had done getting drowned in the water. However, it could do no harm if he was to go a little way. He could always manage to get back somehow. So he stretched himself at full length upon the branch and wriggled his body cautiously along. To his delight, it seemed thick and stout. Another movement, and by stretching out his paw, he would be able to draw the string towards him, when the branch gave a loud crack, and the cat made haste to wriggle himself back the way he had come. But when cats make up their minds to do anything, they generally do it. And this cat began to look about to see if there was really no way of getting at his ball. Yes, there was, and it was much surer than the other, though rather more difficult. Above the bough where the ball was hung was another bough much thicker, which he knew could not break with his weight. And by holding on tight to this with all his four paws, he could just manage to touch the ball with his tail. He would thus be able to whisk the ball to and fro till, by and by, the string would become quite loose and would fall to the ground. It might take some time, but the lion's little brother was patient, like most cats. Well, it all happened just as the cat intended it should. And when the ball dropped on the ground, the cat ran down the tree like lightning, and picking it up, tucked it away in the snake's skin round his neck. Then he began jumping along the shore of the big water from one place to another, trying to find a boat or even a log of wood that would take him across. But there was nothing. Only on the other side he saw two girls cooking, and though he shouted to them at the top of his voice, they were too far off to hear what he said. And what was worse, the ball suddenly fell out of its snakeskin bag right into the river. Now, it is not at all an uncommon thing for balls to tumble into rivers. But in this case, they generally either fall to the bottom and stay there, or else bob about on top of the water close to where they first touched it. But this ball, instead of doing either of these things, went straight across to the other side, and there one of the girls saw it when she stooped to dip some water into her pail. "Ooh, what a lovely ball!" she cried, and tried to catch it in her pail, but the ball always kept bobbing just out of her reach. "Come and help me," she called to her sister, and after a long while they had the ball safe inside the pail. They were delighted with their new toy, and one or the other held it in her hand till bedtime came, and then it was a long time before they could make up their minds about where it would be safest for the night. At last they locked it in a cupboard in one corner of their room, as there was no hole anywhere that the ball could possibly get out. After that they went to sleep. In the morning the first thing they did was run to the cupboard and unlock it. But when the door opened, they started back, for instead of the ball, there stood a handsome young man. "Ladies," he said, "how can I thank you for what you have done for me? Long, long ago, I was enchanted by a wicked fairy, and condemned to keep the shape of a ball until I should meet with two maidens, who would take me to their home. But where was I to meet them? For hundreds of years I have lived in the depths of the forest, where nothing but wild beasts ever came, and it was only when the lion threw me into the sky that I was able to fall to earth near this river. Where there is a river, sooner or later people will come. So, hanging myself on a tree, I watched and waited. For a moment I lost heart when I fell once more into the hands of my old master the wild cat, but my hopes rose again as I saw he was making for the river bank, opposite where you were standing. That was my chance, and I took it. And now, ladies, I have only to say that, if ever I can do anything to help you, go to the top of that high mountain and knock 3 times at the iron door at the north side, and I will come to you." So, with a low bow, he vanished from before them, leaving the maidens weeping at having lost in one moment both the ball and the prince. The end.
And we are back. So, what is your favorite part or version of this story?
I suppose I like the quintessential catness of the cat. Cats are hunters by nature, and their instinct is to just be like, "Foe, die." It's at the root of most of their play.
Yes, I loved all the sort of side comments in the story of, well, of course that's what he did because he was a cat and that's what they do. Um, I think what I enjoyed the most was the unexpectedness throughout the story. With the title, you're looking for something transformative or truly tragic to happen between the lion and the cat. And then it turns out that the true main character of this story is the little golden ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the cat holding a grudge against the lion too. You know, I have a cat who has been holding a grudge against Peanut Gallery for coming on 14 years now because
Wow.
of something he didn't even do, but she perceived it was his fault.
I need the story.
Yeah.
What does she
She
think he did?
she brought a frog in the house. It was a little frog, and it was just the right size to fit right in my ear.
Oh
So
no.
she comes inside and drops this frog in my ear. So, you know, of course I was like, "Ooh, good cat, brought a frog inside." And I put the frog outside. She was so mad about me putting her frog outside that she came right back in the bedroom and peed on his feet.
So she blamed him for what you did.
She blamed him for me putting her frog out. And she has been peeing on his things ever since. We can't let her in the bedroom because she will pee on his clothes.
Over a frog.
Over the frog, yes. Yes, a little tree frog that she dropped in my ear.
I wonder if
Wow.
she
Okay.
remembers that it's about a frog or if she just knows he's bad.
Oh, who
She's
knows?
just mad at him. And she's going to
just
be
mad
mad
at
at him forever. It doesn't matter why.
It's a grudge.
It's a
And
grudge.
I
before
will
then,
have this.
she was basically his cat.
No, what she's mad at him about is not the putting out of the frog, but that he did not defend her against you. So it is his lack of defense of her possession of a frog. She's mad at him for that.
We're
Maybe.
gonna write a
She
whole
wasn't
background
she wasn't
story
actually
on this.
giving me the frog. She was just showing me the frog
It was a gift for him.
in my ear.
Yeah, well, you know, you're his.
You were just the receptacle of the gift for him.
I guess. I was a vessel.
So, reeling us back in a bit. That was a good story. Thank you. My favorite part of this story has nothing to do with the story other than the fact that when it said the cunning grizzly, it reminded me of all of the stories about the bear-proof trash cans at Yosemite National Park. When discussing the bear-proof trash cans, a park ranger reportedly said there is a considerable overlap in intelligence between the smartest bear and the dumbest humans. And I think of that quote often.
I have heard of people complaining that they could not get the trash cans open. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
there's the overlap right there.
Yep.
There's the overlap. That is whenever like all these people talk about the Roman Empire, like something they think about like all the time. I really do think of that quote a lot, like very frequently. I'm
Yes.
like
Bear trash cans. That's
I'm like
your Roman Empire.
the overlap in intelligence between the smartest bear and the dumbest humans is my Roman Empire.
It's like I couldn't get the trash can open. Yeah, no, I wouldn't admit that.
Right? That's not something you should say out loud.
We call that the 10% rule. The 10% rule says that you have to be at least 10% smarter than the object you're trying to use.
Oh, yeah. And now they're just buying cars that look like them. So, what's your least favorite part or version of this story?
It seemed very disjointed and abrupt, like a story told by someone who didn't really know what story they were telling, or a story written by committee. Like it was going along as a buddy animal tale, and suddenly there's drama that is never resolved. The story becomes a magical transformation story instead. Only then the Prince of Hints just runs off and no one gets a happily ever after, or even any kind of conclusion. Did Tom Stoppard write this adaptation?
I'll bet that its roots in the North American Indian culture have something to do with that. It was, like Angel said, probably a bunch of stories about a single character, and some of the context was lost due to not having all of the stories. A true lost in revision tale.
I think some comprehension issues existed too.
Well, that's part of lost in revision.
Exactly. Which is why I really want to find the next story in the series. I want to know what happens when the maidens climb the mountain and knock 3 times on the iron door. I do
I just
agree.
want to know how the bell got in the tree.
I do agree that the ending was a whiplash of changing directions and is a surprise ending. Definitely. But I also found it kind of refreshing that he didn't immediately sweep up the first girl he saw upon being released from his curse and get married. It was very much a thanks for the help, but I've got things to do, and off he went.
Wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
Though that must have been a pretty big cupboard for him to be trapped in until they opened it the next morning.
Well, after being a belle for so long,
Yeah, he
he
was
was
very cramped.
he was probably used to being cramped in the belle. It was like a genie coming out of the lamp.
It makes me wonder which character was the original main character in this story.
Well, I think it most definitely was the golden ball / prince.
Mm.
Obviously, the cat wasn't the first to possess the ball. I mean, it was given to the cat by someone else. So I
Yeah.
think that's the whole idea of the series of stories. I think a lot
Mhm.
of things happened to that poor golden ball along the way.
Cat really had nothing to do
Hey,
with it.
don't call it a poor golden ball until we know his full story. He might be a jerk of a golden ball.
That's
Yeah, why was he
true.
turned into a golden ball in the first place?
Yep.
I have
Mm,
questions.
I do. So many.
So, what are the original lessons that you think this story was trying to convey?
Yeah, possibly something about not trying to trick your friends. You know, the lion acting from greed fooled the cat, who was a powerful ally, and as a result, lost the cat as a friend and ally forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good lesson to learn. I can think of a few people who, through selfish actions, have lost me as a very powerful friend and ally.
Well, I mean, we never even got an update on him. Like, how did the bell get in the tree? What happened to
Well, the
the
bell
lion?
landed in the tree when the lion threw it way up in the air and it never came down. That's
I
how it
thought
got
the
into the tree.
I thought the lion never actually threw it and stole it.
No, he threw it, and he threw it too high up in the air and it never came down.
The lion's entire plot was to steal the bell.
Yeah, but he was
That's
so stupid he
why he
didn't do it
even
right.
played.
Yeah. He stole it badly.
He wasn't catting correctly then.
That's
No.
like the jewel thief that steals the jewels and then drops it down a drain hole.
Well, I was just about to say though, the cats do like toss their favorite items under the refrigerator and stuff too, though. So maybe it is a very cat thing to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I think the main lesson of this story was about patience and planning. The effort that the cat went into to rescue the ball from the tree was actually pretty impressive. And it took a lot of patience and a lot of planning and a lot of paying attention to all the little, the oh no, the branch cracks, but that one's thick. He really had to put a lot of planning into it in order to get what he was after. But his patience was nothing in comparison to how long the prince watched and waited for just the right moment to act in order to put himself in the position to finally break the curse.
Yeah, but it does beg the question. If the prince could control the bell in any way the whole time, why didn't he just try to roll away at some point?
I think rolling was the only thing he could do, and for
He
most
was
of the time
tied on a
he was
string.
tied onto a string attached to the cat's collar.
And then hung up in a tree. He was
And then
trapped.
hung up in a tree. So if the only thing he could do was kind of like roll the bell, if he's always dangling from a string, you can't really.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yes. Talk about frustration.
Bless his heart.
Well, apparently he could also swim.
Right? It's not just rolling. I mean, maybe it's like a
Well, if it's
turbine.
floating and then you're spinning it like those little uh things the little hamster wheels you see people in on top of the water.
Yes.
I'd like to try one of those, but not on the ocean. I would be so
Yeah, not
afraid
on
of
the ocean.
drifting
Have
out
you
to
seen
sea.
the videos of that guy that keeps trying to cross the ocean, but he keeps getting picked up by the Coast Guard and they won't let him?
Yeah. They're like, he's at it again.
So what do you think the modern lesson would be?
Well, definitely be a good steward of your magical items. You never know when it might actually be an enchanted prince. I mean, it's always a possibility.
Did he try kissing it?
I don't know. There are some things I'm just not willing to kiss.
The girl just locked it in a cabinet.
Right? Did not require a kiss.
Doesn't always take a kiss.
But I also think a modern lesson for this day and age would be to take good care of your toys and do not hand them over to those of lesser intelligence just to shut them up when they are bored. Nothing good ever comes from handing valuable things to bored idiots. Like countries.
So true.
This is actually a really good lesson for our current circumstances with all the tariffs, because getting new toys is going to be a lot more expensive, because obviously we three do not need $30.
Obviously.
I mean, the lessons are like, don't let cats have magic balls,
Nice.
or
Okay.
always spay and neuter your pets. Don't trust older siblings. Oh, I gotcha.
Sorry.
I don't think that was the magic balls they were talking about.
I don't mind breaking you on the podcast. I'm leaving that in. I don't even think I need to read all my other line names. I think I'm golden with that. Golden balls.
Oh, God. Okay, breathe. Water.
So, in closing, what do you think happened after the story?
I'm going to bet the prince wasn't much of a cat person after that.
Well, see, I'm thinking that when morning came, the cat had just finally made his way across the water, because he was not giving up on getting that golden ball back, and arrived at the cottage just in time to hear what happened to the golden ball. So rather than the pretty girls being the ones to climb the mountain and knock on the door, it was the cat who then stalked through the door when it opened and made himself right at home, whether the prince was a cat person or not. He figured he owned the golden ball, so he owned the person it turned into and all that they had acquired.
I wonder if he could still tell him to kill things. And, that ties into, like, I'm just happy that the ending prevented a cat from having unilateral power over life and death. I mean, Fergus would have everything within 10 miles dead with a thought.
Yeah, Marmalade left a giant and very dead mole in the carport the other day, and while I don't necessarily want the moles around since they wrecked the yard, I don't want the dead ones on my doorstep either.
Wow.
Yeah, no. There was a point in the story where I was really afraid that the cat was just going to, with a thought, kill his brother, because that brother was getting annoying.
Oh, that would have happened in most of our other darker stories.
It would have in most of our other darker stories. That's the way the story would have ended.
Lie and die.
Right? He was a very sweet cat for that, actually, because he had that thought and he just didn't speak it out loud. Then they lost that dang bell. So going back to your issue with the moles, that is an insult to your ability to provide for your colony.
Oh no, my role is to provide kibble and canned food, which they are unable to. They can catch all of the live things that they want, and they figured out that we don't actually want any of those. But what they want is canned food and kibble, which I seem to be able to procure with ease. So that's my role in providing for the colony.
You have defense.
And also Doritos. They haven't found where to hunt Doritos yet.
Well, then you're in power for good.
So once they find the Dorito colony, I'm out.
Thanks for joining us today. Check us out on Patreon, and you can help us meet our small goal of breaking even and covering our expenses. Your support helps pay for all of the things that podcasting requires, and helps keep this show alive and growing. If you can't afford to support us financially, go give us a good review, subscribe or follow, and share with your friends and family. Feel free to fact check us and offer suggestions to make our show better for you. You can also send us an email at lostinrevisionpodcast@gmail.com.
There's a lot more waiting for us all at the end of the road.